What's the most important part of the screenwriting process that if it was taken away, it would just totally make the whole thing, not fun, would negate the whole process for you?
For me, the most important part of the process, I guess, is, the most important part of any process of writing, whether it's a screenplay or not, is the dreaming. The dreaming of making another world or telling a new, fresh story. I don't know if that's particular to screenwriting. But again, I do like the cinematic format of a screenplay. I'm not going to say that I prefer it to a novel or a book, but there is immediacy to it. And I guess if screenplays didn't have that immediacy, maybe I wouldn't be as attracted to writing it. But I like that kind of, that sort of, I guess, Hunter S. Thompson sort of like really rapid fire way that you can write a script. Not everyone writes screenplays like that. Some people, like Manchester by the Sea, I'm sure isn't written that way. It's a slow drive, and it's just the characters are subtly and beautifully, and there's different gears you can use to write a screenplay. And sometimes you want to write a slow one, and sometimes you want to write a fast one, and that's I think part of the fun.
Is there a specific book that you've enjoyed reading that's taught you about the writing process, or maybe indirectly taught you about it, that's not really intended for screenwriters?
Well, I read a Sid Field book when I started out, and I had read it, and I liked some of what he had to say. And I read How to Be a or whatever, some book, for dummies or something, How to Be a Screenplay. That didn't do anything for me. Once in a while, these books work when they tell you things to avoid. I think those when you go to the store, you're going to see 75 books that say How to Be a Screenwriter. I would say the most valuable aspect of those books are often the parts where they tell you to avoid. The things they say, stay away from, because there are cliches. There are a lot of them, and when people in the film industry read those cliches over and over again, it has an effect on them. I got my experience from reading my favorite movies or my favorite screenplays. So I remember when I opened up Sid Field's book, I think his first one, he was talking about Chinatown, and he's talking about how he thinks it might be one of the best, or the best screenplay of the 1970s, he said. And I had just at that time gotten into Chinatown. I had watched it like 8 times in a row. I was, I was 18 years old. I had just really discovered it, and I loved it. It's what made me want to be a screenwriter. And then to see him say that in his prologue, I was like, oh, okay, now I want to be on this guy's. And I read Chinatown. I remember I read Shawshank Redemption and American Beauty, and I wanted to read American Beauty because maybe people don't know this, but it has a whole different ending than the movie. I wanted to read the shooting screenplays and see how different they were from the actual movie. I got a lot of information, I felt, from the screenplay for The People versus Larry Flint. Reason being, that is based on a true story, obviously. Larry Flint, I think, had 8 wives. And in the movie, there's just Courtney Love. And that was just a revelation to me, that you can, in order to make a movie work in a certain time period, here's how you can cheat the numbers and still be mostly true. That was obviously a big cheat. But The People versus Larry Flint, I remember, and Shawshank were big ones for me for learning a lot about the formatting of the script, and how much action and how little action you need when you're at your heading and things like that. The formatting is very important. The aesthetic is very important, and I basically learned by reading screenplays.